prioritize mental health in and out of workplace. Interview with Nisha Lehmann. Discussing mental health issues with anyone, whether professional or peer, can be a step many are simply not ready for. But being able to offer tailored immersive experiences that speak to specific mental health issues for those who are struggling with mental health can be an effective outlet to experience mental health through a different set of eyes and address mental health in a safe and secure way without having to relive painful moments or trauma. Would you like to learn some tools that you can use to help you? Then stay tuned as our guest today is going to share a wonderful tool that you can use to safely express your mental health issues, whether you're at work or outside work. You're watching Happy and Healthy Mind, program 128. And today our guest is Nisha Lehmann. Thank you, Nisha, for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Nisha is a mobile developer by day. By night, she is a staunch advocate for better mental health. The idea she wants to share with us today is an app that integrates video games that address specific mental health issue for users struggling with mental health. What a wonderful idea. I'm so excited to learn more about it. And I'm your host, Dr. Rosina Lakhani. I help leaders reverse burnout using their own genetic markers. I've been helping people come out of severe depression and anxiety over the last 26 years as a psychiatrist. And I realized that the root cause of many of the mental health problems is stress and burnout. Therefore, in these programs, I bring tips for mental fitness so people can manage their stress better and prevent diseases like burnout, anxiety, and depression. And if you have any specific medical issue, please consult your healthcare professional. But if you find this content helpful, please share and so other people could also benefit from it. All right, so let's learn from our guest. So, Nisha, tell me, how did this topic become important for you in your life?
Well, I think I could be a very good candidate for one of your patients. I, like many, I believe, suffered from a barrage of mental health issues, but for me, around the same time. So I've been working in the consulting space for the last 15 years. To anyone who has been working in consulting, you know what a breakneck pace it is. You're constantly on the go, traveling to client sites, delivering on projects. I don't know if it was burnout or not because I think 5, 10 years ago, this wasn't even a term that was known in the market, or if it was kind of something that was brushed under the rug. But I'm pretty sure I had all of the telltale signs of burnout.
That's what happens with a lot of people. Like, we are having these symptoms, but we don't recognize it, and it keeps going on and on and on until it
Yeah.
becomes severe illness, and that's when people end up coming to the doctors.
Exactly, exactly. And that's really why I was so passionate about developing this app because I believe the doctor should be really the last step. If you can take some steps proactively yourself to try to figure out what are you suffering from and what's causing it, it helps the doctor, it helps you, it makes the process significantly easier. So between the burnout and then leaving the job and then or let's say getting fired from the job, let's be more specific, being fired from the job and having a baby, I think all of these things were many life changes that were happening, I think, in the same moment for me. And I was just living in a very deep denial about it for a long time. And I didn't want to face the reality that I was bringing life into the world. I didn't want to face the reality that I had no financial blanket. I had no security. And I felt even guilty about seeing a professional because I thought, well, how can I see someone? It's like a luxury. All my money should be saved for the kid, right? Especially what little of it there is. So I really thought, okay, well, I can't see someone now, but surely there must be someone I can talk to that could still understand me where I don't have to pay, a ton of money out of my pocket, or I don't have to make this huge in time investment into or a time commitment into going once a week or twice a week or however much. All I needed really was kind of someone who was experiencing some of the same things that could walk through it with me. I really just needed a partner. I don't know if I needed a therapist or a professional to tell me what to do, but I wanted not to experience it alone, let's say. And I assumed you could find these things online, given that was when the COVID pandemic was starting, so everything was moving online. But honestly, when it comes to mental health, at least let's say between 3 and 4 years ago, it was very sparse to find resources online that could help you, because they're connected to social media profiles, they're connected to public personas that you create. And I don't know, maybe there are just people braver than myself, but I was certainly not willing to out myself on Facebook that I have potential postpartum depression or high anxiety or, um, facing gender bias at work. For me, I felt super uncomfortable writing any of this en
Mhm.
masse to people. What I really thought was necessary was an app where you could connect in smaller groups and that everything was completely private and anonymized. So when you enter into the application, it's basically you're assigned an emoji, like a harmless, broccoli or a banana or a tomato or something, but that's all anyone sees of you. And
Yeah.
you join the groups that you feel like are the most apropos, or what you think you want to learn more about, or what you might be experiencing, and you walk through it together with a group of peers where you can help them, they can help you. The entire point is to be able to share your story and learn from each other and pick up some routines and some ideas that you might not have thought of, that a therapist could likely never tell you, because it's not as if the therapist has also been through what you're going through. I think really the people that can help you the most in your mental health journey are survivors, because they're going through or have experienced the same thing that you have. And the goal of this app is to connect survivors. That's really what this is trying to build.
So you were going through this thing and you felt the need for something like this.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, it was either that or just drowning in my blankets and never getting out of
Mhm.
bed, really.
So, but it must have taken time for you to build this platform. What
Yes.
helped you at that time, and how did your life change once you started engaging and expressing your issues with somebody
Yeah.
that you could trust?
Yeah, I think honestly, and you'll hear it said a lot, right? It's such a cliche, but the biggest hurdle is to get started with something, to find the motivation to actually get started. But for me, it became a critical situation because I knew I was getting worse. I was having suicidal ideations. I mean, I knew I was getting worse. And I knew that if I didn't do something for myself, I wasn't really going to be able to help myself, or save myself. And save myself sounds very dramatic, but
Yeah, if you're having suicidal thoughts, you have a kid, you feel the responsibility to be alive.
exactly. I
And
mean,
how are you going
sometimes you
to?
drown under it. And what I really thought was, what I knew in my mind was, even though there's all of these emotions swirling around that are out of my control or felt out of my control, I knew that I wasn't alone. I always knew that in the back of my mind. There are new moms every day. There are babies being born every day. Certainly, this can't be something that I alone feel, right? And so initially, the impetus was, well, let's create the network for moms, right, to connect with each other and to talk to each other. But then, the idea of going back to work after having a child and facing again all of the kind of workplace related mental health issues that don't go away just because you leave. So I broadened the scope at that point, but really the impetus to get started was the fact that I knew if I didn't, I mean, this is a critical thing, but like I knew if I didn't do it, if I didn't take that first step, I wasn't going to be able to help myself in any way. And
Mhm.
there would either then be no choice but to shell out the money for a therapist and try to do something on an emergency basis, or connect with these hotlines that are trying to walk you through. But these are really, when if you've ever called a suicide hotline, or if you've ever called them, it's like a 911 service, right? You cannot sit there and have a very long, lengthy conversation. And the idea is they save you once, but you don't call them again unless you have another emergency. So they're not this on-call counselor service that you would think about, which I thought was kind of like, well, it's like you get help one time and you have the taste of what that is, but then you cannot go back again until you really need it. And for me, again, the idea of going to a therapist was great if you can afford it, but at that time it was such an expense that I just couldn't take on. And I really thought, there's got to be another way. And that was really what kicked my butt into action, to be perfectly transparent, because once I started working on the app, I was fully consumed by it. And it was such a therapeutic experience itself, working, because it was taking on a project like that is massive, right? The entire app development from front end to back end, the entire user experience, how you want the app to flow, there are so many things to think about. And the more you think about that and you almost distract yourself from your own problems with these projects, the more I don't know, for me, the more it helped, the more I started to think, well, you know what, this is for the greater good. It's not just for me. It's going to help me, but it's going to help thousands of others. And if I can contribute to something like that, then what a great life, then my life is really
Yeah.
worth living.
Wonderful. So you found a purpose. You found a
In the most
purpose,
extreme way you can imagine. Yes.
and then the desire to help others kind of got you going.
Yeah.
And then I would love to learn some more tips that you can share with our audience today in a few minutes. But before we go on to those tips, how is life different now, like, compared to how it was before versus now that you have applied some of these tools?
Well, I believe it's an interesting question you ask, because I think my life shifted not necessarily because of this project, but because of the COVID pandemic. Because suddenly it became acceptable to have burnout. It became acceptable to suffer from depression. Suddenly these things had no stigma around them, or less stigma around them. And
Yeah.
that really changed everything. That was a dramatic shift in the mental health space, because I mean, I'm Asian, you're Asian. As growing up as kids, we never talked about mental health. It was like, you deal with your own stuff, you do you. Don't bring your baggage into the house and so on. But like, and I don't want to stereotype Asians, but you see this culturally, that it's still embedded into the culture of the Asian culture. And what I find so interesting that now is the next generation is so loud about their mental health. They're just not accepting this idea that it's not okay to suffer from sexual harassment. It's absolutely not okay, no, to be silent when you are going through pain. And I think it's incredibly empowering and so long overdue. So for me, the answer would be COVID pandemic is actually what switched the mindset and the stigma around mental health. Yeah, so basically, I think that's really the paradigm shift that we're looking at, and I'm super grateful for it, because I think the sooner we can end the stigma around mental health, the easier it's going to be for everyone. I mean, I'm a pretty staunch advocate that we should be treating our physical and mental health the same, but we're not quite at that stage yet. But
Mm.
I think finally employers are starting to wake up to the importance of mental health. Parents are starting to wake up. Families are starting to wake up. So it really seems like now is the if you're going to have a mental health issue, now is a good time to have one, I suppose, because it becomes okay to talk about at least a good number of them. Maybe there are still some where there's still some reservation, but yeah, I'm just happy in the direction that it's moving.
Wonderful, wonderful. So let's share some of the tips that people could use to prioritize their mental health, whether at work. What are some of the things that you found that has helped? What are some of the things they can do outside work so that they can take care of their mental health and be the best gifts? Because when you
Yes.
are down, whether burnout, anxiety, or depression, or other mental health issues, then you're not able to give the world your best abilities. You're not able to work well at work, like you said that you got fired, or at home, taking care of your family, your child, and yourself. So everything kind of gets affected. So how do we prioritize? What are some of the things that you found that were really helpful?
Some of the things are quite simple. The easiest prioritization you can do for your mental health is to turn off all your phone notifications before you go to sleep. And if it's possible, charge your mobile phone in a different room. I know for me that's such an easy thing to do, but we never really conscientiously think about doing that or going into our settings to set that up. There's even a particular setting in most phones for it called digital well-being, where it black and whites your screen, or makes your screen black and white after a certain hour. It gives you reminders that it's time to go to sleep at this time, and all your notifications are immediately blocked, so you don't hear this constant annoying buzz in the middle of the night. I mean, I have friends globally, so I would always be woken up with messages and things like that. And you set the times for you. So if you're working the night shift, then you set that for the daytime. If you're working regular hours, then you set it for what works best for you. But that's such an easy thing to do, and I think everybody has probably woken up to this one by now. But if you haven't, this is a really easy thing to adjust, and
Yeah.
it's a total game changer.
I
Um,
struggled with for so long and I didn't realize that I could do it. But
it's
then
so
once
simple,
I
right?
figured it out, like I just put do not, I have programmed it like do not disturb, like, 10 o'clock at night till, 5 o'clock in the morning. No, no buzzing, no ting, ting, ting.
Exactly, because that helps you focus more on the present, on your family, on wherever you are, right, with your
Yeah.
friends, right? If you have no notifications, nothing to worry about. I mean, I'm quite notorious for just not checking the phone after a certain hour too, because I really figure if it's that important, then they'll reach me again in the morning. Maybe not the best mindset, because if there's an emergency, then of course your notifications are turned off. But on the whole, I would absolutely recommend that as just a very easy way to keep your sanity, and I mean, as in how you can, right? I mean, if you can limit the amount of time you're on social media, if you can limit the amount of time you're on screens, that's also a huge difference, right? We are in front of screens, or at least me, I'm in front of screens at least 8 hours a day for work. So the last thing I want to do after I go pick up my child, or after I'm done with work, the last thing I want to do is look at a screen. I have just no motivation for it anymore. So for me, that turn off is relatively easy. But for others, they go straight from one screen to another, and that's perfectly normal. And I know many people like that. And I think just that action of looking at the screen as often as we do, it just takes us out of the moment so much that it's a way of disconnecting yourself from reality in a way, I think. And so as much as you can, just try to shut it off, or just try to leave your phone in one room and go into another. I just posted a blog post about this because a friend was telling me a story that she left her phone overnight in a cafe, but she couldn't get it back because the cafe closes at night, and she couldn't get it back till the morning. And during the night she was actually going through symptoms of withdrawal, what you would imagine for addiction. Night sweats and incredibly high anxiety, and I mean, shaking in the bed. I mean, all of these things because her phone was not next to her. Cell phone addiction is real. I mean, that is a real addiction that the next generation, and even our generation, I would argue, has to deal with. And so the more you can practice safe distancing from the phone, I believe that's also an easy tip. Well, not easy to put in practice, but easy to at least reconcile. And the one I've heard over and over again is to try and be in nature as much as possible, as and when you can. I mean, our company engages with walking meetings. I know that that's a fad, a trendy thing to do now. So if you can have meetings on the go when you're just walking, or if you can escape into the nature somehow, go to the beach, go to the forest, go to whatever's around you, so you can just appreciate the nature, the mountains. I mean, I'm blessed to live in a country where that's everywhere, right? So it's hard to even escape it. But I know other people who are living the suburban life. Just go for a walk around your block,
Yeah. Yeah.
try to tune out the noise and just, listen to yourself and your own thoughts. That might be helpful for some, that might not be so helpful for others. But I've heard it repeated over and over what wonders that can do if you can really just escape into the woods for a while, or escape into whatever nature is close by, even just to the park or something like that, to the playground. If you can just get away, just doing that even for half an hour a day, I think makes a massive difference.
Nisha, you mentioned that you live in a country which has a lot of nature. So, where are you joining us from? I forgot to tell the audience earlier.
I live in Switzerland.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. So I think one of the things that I have found is that even when we think that we don't have access to, like, really beautiful Switzerland access, but, like, anywhere you are, just kind of getting out and getting the fresh air. Like yesterday, I was seeing patients, and I was kind of really getting exhausted, and there was like this 5 minutes break between the two patients. I just said, I need to get out. And so I went out, and the office complex where my office is, there's no area that I can kind of go for a stroll. But just getting out of the office and going around that office building and coming back really woke me up. So just that, getting that fresh air and change of the position really helped, because my work has become just sitting and talking to people. So I'm sitting a lot, and I'm typing my notes. So, like, I'm staring at the screen a lot.
I think it's a word. I believe
Yeah,
screening is a word. So I think if it's not, it should be in the lexicon now.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, so anywhere, I would say to our listeners, wherever you are, just changing that position, getting out of the environment for a few minutes kind of gives you this break. And nature could be anything, even kind of noticing the walls and graffiti on the walls, or the garbage on the floor, like just becoming mindful in the moment and
Yeah,
changing where you are kind of can help you reset your mind and bring you in the moment.
absolutely.
Yeah, break that monotony of just staring on the screen.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, within the workplace, I know we talked a lot about the things you can do outside of the workplace just now, but within the workplace too, I mean, there are many, many, I think, tips and ideas and tricks that you can kind of get yourself into. One is, I mean, for me, you can schedule meetings that end 5 minutes early or 10 minutes early even. So I mean, my calendar is full of meetings that start at 05 and end at 55. So
Uh-huh.
there's always that 5 minute gap between meetings. I think we don't do that enough because you need that 5 minutes or longer, right, to reset in
Right.
between. It's important. I mean, I don't know. I feel so exhausted and just completely worn out if I have to jump from meeting to meeting to meeting to meeting all day. It's so hard to keep all of the different topics in your head at the same time. But if you have a 5 minute buffer in between meetings, just that alone makes a tremendous difference because you get to mentally prepare for the next meeting. You can kind of put yourself in a headspace of, okay, I can't take a break yet, but after this one, I'm done, right? And so it really helps you put things in perspective. But most of the time, we don't give ourselves that break, that 5 minute break. And I mean, this is going to sound extreme, but I work 4 days a week because I live in a country that allows me the flexibility to do that. So I don't have to work 100%. I can work 80%, and that means every Wednesday I'm off, or every Wednesday I'm off, but you can take whatever day you like. And that's also an incredible. It is just such a incredible breath of fresh air when it comes to mental health because everything isn't piled onto the weekend. You don't have to wait to until Sunday evening and be stressed out by the end of the week because you didn't finish your laundry, you didn't go grocery shopping, the time escaped you because you were, I don't know, busy with other things. If you have one day off during the week, I know it's not a luxury many people can afford, but if you can do that and your situation allows you that, the bigger point is to really try to find what work life balance is good for you. For me, this is perfect. And I can tell you on Thursday when I go back to the office, I am sharper than Monday. Because I'm focused, I'm recharged. It's just such an incredible feeling. It's even better than coming back to work on a Monday because Sunday you still feel exhausted from the weekend sometimes. So if that's something you can do, I would absolutely recommend it because it's so good for your physical health, for your mental health. It's just so good for you. We're all working too much, which is why burnout has become a thing now. And the Great Resignation happened in the U.S. People are standing up and saying this is not okay anymore. It's not okay for employers to take full advantage of me. I need my own time. And so I'm really hoping that it means that employers are open to more flexible working schedules and hybrid working. And you see these things are coming up now after the COVID pandemic, and I really hope they stick because for your mental health, it's just such like a leap forward. It's not baby steps anymore. It's a giant leap forward.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I'm getting so many tips myself, and many of these things, of course, I also teach, but I also learned about starting the meeting at 10:05 instead of 10 o'clock. I never thought about that. I always did like 10 to 10:50 and keep like 10 minutes break at the end. But this idea of starting at 10:05, that is wonderful. I'm going to adopt it. I hope our listeners are finding value, and please share in the comment what is your best nugget that you have found. Nisha, we're kind of coming towards the end of time, so please give us your best advice.
It's so it sounds so cliche, my best advice. I mean, the advice that has helped me the most is to define success in my own terms. But it's definitely not something that I coined or came up with because I, many mentors will say this to you, right? I mean, happiness and success are completely subjective. It could mean having a ton of money in your bank account. It could mean doing something nice for your neighbor. It could mean, being a good role model for your children. I think the prioritization of mental health is something that is important for me, but there's so many different hats we wear. I'm not just a mental health advocate. I'm a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a this, I'm a that, I'm a UX designer. We all have a lot of different titles. And deciding which one is the most important for you, I think, goes a really long way in helping you define your priorities and how you're going to approach work and your life. So, I mean, figure out what success means for you and what really makes you happy, and don't let anything stop you from achieving that, because you're going to fail. I mean, that's I guess the other piece of advice I would give is don't be afraid of failure. You're absolutely going to fail, but have the courage to stand up and give it another go. Not always easy, for sure, especially when it comes to mental health. But if you can, but defining success, defining what makes you happy, what brings you joy, it goes such a long way in helping you assess where you are in the mental health spectrum, right? If you can figure out what makes you happy, then you can gear your life toward more of those things, which of course then improves your thinking, improves your mind, reduces stress, reduces depression, and so on, right? So it sounds really cliche, my advice, but it's been something that I've lived by, because for me it's really really important that we don't go by what society thinks success is, but we actually define it in our own terms. For me, it's not having the most followers, it's not having 100,000 people download the app. I mean, that would be amazing, but the goal for me was to help one person or two. I mean, I have maybe I set very low goals, but for me, it was just if I can make a difference or an impact, even in a small way, to try to help people see mental health differently as something you can get under control and something that doesn't control you, I'm I'm ecstatic. So
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. And so, if people want to reach you, how can they reach you?
you can go to www.confidconvos.com. So it's www.confidconvos.com. So Confid Convos, short for confidential conversations. There's a way to reach me through the contact form. You can also, if you want to, send me your email address, and with that I can send a promo code to you for you to be able to download the app for free. It is paid in this moment simply because we didn't want to put ads in the app. If you've ever developed an app, it's very black and white, at least on Apple and Google. If it's free, they're allowed to bombard you with ads, and if it's paid, it's private. And the whole point of this app is that you're anonymous and that it's a secure and safe space to talk about mental health. So no ads, thankfully, but we also want to make it accessible for everyone. So if you do have a problem with the download fee, just send me a note and we'll help you download it for free. The app is called Confidential Conversations. You can find it on the App Store or on Google Play. And our social media handle is at Confid Convos, so the same as the website, but just with an at in the front. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter. I mean, I hope you don't spend that much time on social media, but if you feel like following us, we're always posting things about what's coming up with mental health, blog posts we've written about the advent of AI and how that can have dramatic impacts on your mental health, how tech impacts mental health, the positive impact of gaming on mental health. So we really look at mental health from a tech standpoint because I believe and we believe that most of the mental health issues that are going to come in the future are going to be tech related or stemmed by technology somehow. And so the more we can do to try to educate people about the fact that there are easy ways for you to protect yourself from the technology in a way, there are easy ways for you to switch things off and kind of reset, I think the better that the future generations will be.
Wonderful, wonderful. And thank you so much for sharing the gift with our audience. And so Nisha is going to share a PDF on how to prioritize mental health in workplace. And you can get it by going to our website, happyandhealthymind.com/resources. And we'd be happy to share this and all the other resources that our wonderful guests share on this platform. So let me leave you with this question today. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. What are you going to choose? Are you going to let life flow without taking any proactive step and wait till mental health issues become really severe illnesses? Or are you going to take proactive steps? Start identifying and acknowledging any of the issues you are going through, express them, communicate about them, and if needed be, get the help. Seek the help of peers, and if it is not enough, seek the therapy. Seek professional providers to help you so that you can save yourself from unnecessary suffering, from reaching to the point where you are thinking about suicide or you lose your productivity and ability to give the world your best. I hope you found some value in this program. If you liked it, please share with others so that they can also benefit, and then you can bask in the benefit blessing of helping others. On that note, stay safe, happy, and healthy. Until next time, Dr. Wilson.